feel like Kobe in the fourth quarter.
This is the DaneMoore NBA podcast. We are brought to you by Prize Picks, coming at you Thursday morning. It's November 20th. And coming up on today's show, I will be joined by Britt. He wrote his column yesterday about just this bizarre start to the season where the Wolves have played 10 teams that have losing records this season and only 5 teams that have a winning record. We start the episode off by getting into that because the Wolves are 10-0 against those below 500 teams and 0-5 against the teams with winning records. From there, we actually spend a lot of time kind of talking about this upcoming Oklahoma City matchup next Wednesday as sort of a stress test to that dichotomy of this team right now. In that section, we get into Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards a lot. And from there, we kind of do cycle through some players. A lot of this is player specific. Naz Reid, obviously, he's had a really big last 3 games. We get into him, Donte DiVincenzo, and then, of course, your daily Jaylen Clark segment as well. It is a Brit pod, so a handful of side tangents in there. But per usual, I feel like I have a better grasp of this team after spending an hour talking to Brit about them. Before we get started, as I mentioned off the top, this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. And with the Wolves finally having a night off, maybe you're moving over to watching some football, Thursday night football. This evening, it's Bills-Texans. In that game, give me James Cook to have less than 74.5 rushing yards. That Texans run defense is no joke, and 74.5 is a pretty high number for a running back. And then also I saw in there Josh Allen to score a touchdown. I feel like that's almost always an over 50% proposition. Pair those Bills picks up with a Texans player or maybe even to a player in an NBA game tonight, and you'll have a Prize Picks lineup locked in. No need to play for more than $5. It should just be something fun on the side to do. As a reminder how this works, Prize Picks lineup, you put 2 or more picks together in a lineup to win. If you don't yet have a Prize Picks account and you want to try it out, use the promo code Dane when you sign up, and you will receive $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. That's prizepicks.com or the Prize Picks app using promo code Dane when you create your account. Time for some Wolves talk with Britt. Let's go. All right, we are now joined by Britt Robson to discuss the now 10-5 Minnesota Timberwolves. Britt, after a win against the Wizards last night, the Wolves are now 10-0 this season against teams that have a losing record thus far this season. And in the 5 games they played against teams with a winning record, they are 0-5. I think maybe most people know that. We've been talking about that. But how ready are you for this to be done? I feel like the Wizards game is the end of the cupcake schedule.
Very ready. The 10-0, obviously, how can you complain about 10-0? The problem is the way 10-0 happens sets up 0-5. I just think it's really difficult to govern yourself to think I can play better, do better, work harder when I'm undefeated in 10 games. I just think that your body and your mind, everything sets a standard that, look, we're undefeated under these circumstances. You could say, okay, all of a sudden it's going to be different now, but saying that in your mind and actually executing it, it's the same reason people go to training camp after working out in the summertime. You need step ups. You need to graduate into higher caliber play. And this is by far the worst way to get ready for a competitive conference, I think, because it's an illusory 10-5. On the other hand, it's 10-5. It's 67% winning percentage. That translates into 54-28 at the least, maybe 55-27. That's a top 2 or 3 seed.
Sure.
So it's easy to say everything is fine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even in the like everything is fine or everything isn't fine. Right. I don't think we know enough to know if either side of it. I think my whole thought on it is, covering this team for the better part of a decade, I feel like 15 games into a season, typically, I have a decent
exactly
idea of what the team is or isn't.
Right.
And I, again, not for better or for worse, I'm personally still a little confused or yearning to get a better idea of what it is. I asked Rudy about it in the locker room, this specifically, the 10-0, 0-5 in the locker room after the game. I'll play that clip.
They're 10-0 against teams that have a losing record and 0-5 against teams that have a winning record. Does that make it at all hard for you to kind of understand who you guys are as a team? Is it confusing at all for you?
I mean, you can see the glass empty or full, or half full. It's good that we're taking care of business, but it's also, we're trying to beat the good teams if you want.
But does it make it more difficult for you to like understand what your guys' identity is?
No, not really. I think once again, I think we know what we need to do to beat those teams. I mean, we lost Denver twice on back-to-backs, which is not an excuse, but it plays a big part, right? Sometimes you look at schedule, and it is the NBA season. The most important I think is to stay the course and to keep getting better throughout the year. And I think we have confidence in every single guy in his locker room to beat anybody in the NBA. So I'm happy that we're taking care of business, and I think we're going to keep raising our level as a team. I think we're a better team now than we were a month ago, and hopefully we're a better team a month from now.
So, Britt, in your piece that you wrote on Wednesday, I don't have the updated records of the teams that they played against, but what you had down in there was the teams that they'd beaten, and this is pre-Wizards, were 19 and 64.
Right. And they came into this game 1-12. The Wizards did. So that's 20 and 76.
77. Yeah. Well, because then they lost last tonight to the Wolves too. So,
okay,
and then maybe there's a couple other games, but like we were talking about the teams that the Wolves have beaten have about a winning percentage of 20%.
Right. If I threw out the Portland, I think I threw out the
Portland, that might be
because they were like 6 and 7 or something. There was the one team, and it was on opening night. So there wasn't an inkling. And Portland, to be honest, was probably one of their tougher tests.
Yeah.
Easily their best quote unquote win. And so I thought what we heard from Rudy was exactly the opposite of what he intended, which is, we know what our identity is, but then he just gave us a tremendous amount of cliches. Yeah. And Chris Finch doesn't know what this team is. None of the players know what this team is. They haven't had a sustained run against quality teams. And that's when you find out. If you get hit in the mouth, if you play OKC and get beaten by 40, which is not uncommon for teams around the NBA this year, you suddenly begin to understand what you need to do and you dedicate yourself. It's very, very hard to wake up this morning having beaten the Wizards, despite the fact that they played really lackadaisically and without focus for much of the second half, allowed a terrible team to get back in, allowed offensive rebounds, total turnaround from the first half where they got 21 points off turnovers in the first half, harassed the Wizards into terrible shooting.
Playing so fast, transition.
They were up 27 with a minute left in the half.
Yeah.
And with like 2 minutes left in the game, they were up 6 or 5.
5. It got us those 5.
So, and the Wizards are not a good team. Now, admittedly, a couple of their guys began to hit shots. They do have 3 guys who can shoot, and they all began to, get in and get shots. McCollum and Middleton, and then George, all I think, began to shoot well. But you notice that Rudy himself, I watched the second half just before this podcast, and he was kind of unclear as to drop or contest on those mid-ranges. And players were getting picked off, the typical thing that happens to the Wolves when the defense falters, especially in the half court. They weren't sustaining defense on pick and rolls, either via rotation or getting stuck on screens.
No Jaden.
Huh?
No Jayden, I think, was a big
Yeah,
part
no,
of why the pick and roll
actually, very
defense is
good
worse.
point. No Jayden. The ball movement frequently allowed a wide open guy on the weak side, a Randle and Ant, who, obviously run the offense, are very important to the identity of the team. Both had blatant examples of times where they just watched the play. It's the kind of thing that happens when you get up to a 1-12 team by 27 points in the first half. You come out and you don't play well. And it's human nature. And that's the thing that it is also human nature to up your game and avoid embarrassment if you get embarrassed on the regular, and they haven't played enough quality teams to get embarrassed on the regular.
So I don't know, this hit my mind when you just said, if you lose to OKC by 40, what if they beat OKC on Wednesday in OKC? How much of whatever this sort of hangover that you're feeling of what they've been thus far this season, of like at least confusing, if not, kind of bad against good teams, like how much is that an elixir to whatever you're feeling if they do that against Oklahoma City?
I think a lot of it will depend on how it happens. If OKC has just a ridiculously bad game, or there's one aspect of the Wolves, if the Wolves play a complete game and they beat an elite team like OKC, I think the odds of that happening are like 2%. But I do think that if that were to happen, for one thing, it would give me a lot more interesting things to write about and analyze, because, how did this suddenly happen?
Right.
Have they been able to somehow regulate themselves and then jump to an elite level?
They are such in nature, or have been such an unpredictable team, that I could absolutely see it. Aren't a team that really stays on a trend line.
Except,
when they play OKC.
I would agree. That is the ongoing narrative. And that is a narrative I freely did until I really dug into, just this last piece I wrote. Since March 1st, they're 23-1 against teams with losing records. That's a pattern. That's consistent.
Yeah.
They may look bad at points of it because they know they've got the game in the bag, but the idea that the Wolves falter against bad teams, at least in the last 24 games, has certainly been reversed.
And one of the greatest representations of a very good team over the course of NBA history is, like, I don't know, somebody listening, go look it up. Like when the Nuggets won the championship a couple years ago, look up what their record was against teams who were sub 500. The Thunder, it's like 22-1. It's things like that, So I think, to the Wolves' credit, and the Wolves are a good team. That is what great teams do. So I'm just saying, there's multiple ways to take it. My overall stance on this is confusion rather than determination.
Okay, and my position isn't that the Wolves are a good team or a bad team. My position is playing a succession of weak foes does not prepare them to be as good a team as they otherwise would be if the schedule was more mixed. I just think it is very, very difficult to raise your level of play if you don't have the competition. It's a truism in sports. It's axiomatic that greater competition makes you yourself compete better, harder, and play better.
Sure.
And the lack of that this season is hurting this team. 4 of their 5 losses to winning teams have been by double digits. The only one that wasn't, they were down 20 in the second half against the Lakers and came back and lost by 1.
Right.
But they have not been as competitive as I think they would have been, even in the games they've lost, if they had been able to play a more balanced schedule.
Yeah, no, I like that. And you've actually, just sitting next to you at games, you've been saying that for 7 to 10 days or something like that.
People used to ask me why I covered the Timberwolves when they were so terrible for so long. And I always said it was NBA basketball. But I also got a chance to watch a lot of opponents play bad teams.
Yeah, right.
The Timberwolves team I was covering and watching. And a lot of people came in, and you could tell the teams that were sharp enough to know exactly how to crush a team in a way that hurts,
Right.
and a team that kind of just gets by.
And
the
you
Wolves,
are the expert on this. I hadn't thought about that, but you've seen hundreds of those.
and the Wolves are kind of in the middle. I won't say they're the kind of team that is so lackadaisical that they blow games, or that they are so blatant about it that you just can say, what's wrong with the Timberwolves?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think what's wrong with the Timberwolves is they haven't had a chance to test themselves in ways that are most educational. The way you learn about yourself is to be in adverse situations that are relatively new to you this year, and you react to it with your new teammates. Chris Finch says every year it's a blank slate. I mean, he talked continuity on the one hand, but on the other hand, he knows that it's a different team, a different personality every year. You lose a Naz, that's big, but even just in general, people come back in different ways. Julius Randle is a different player this year than he was last year. Mike Conley, in some ways, is a different player than he was last year. We're seeing what the three young guys are capable of, both pro and con.
Mm-hmm.
All these things are factors in. And when I did ask Finch about his teams get better on offense every year he's been here, why was that? He said continuity, but he didn't say year-to-year continuity. He said within the course of a season, you find out what the habits are. You find out what the team likes to do, and then you lean into what they like and what they're good at, and that's how you structure your team. That, again, happens best when you're seeing what the team can do when challenged and playing at a high level. It's just a lack of a sample size is really, I think, the issue for me. I'm not saying the Timberwolves are bad. They're 10-5, and they have shown the capability of working themselves into the kind of rhythm and competitiveness that will make them a force, I think, in the West. But I think that ramp up is going to be harder now because of the way the schedules worked.
I want to jump into a new topic, but let's grab our first break, and then we'll be back with Britt. Today's show is brought to you by Falling Knife Brewing Company, and this Friday night, Pack Tats will be doing a tattooing pop-up at Falling Knife during the game against the Phoenix Suns. Yes, Pack Tats is the Naz Reid tattoo guy. When we did Wolves Fest back before the season started, Pack Tats was also out there, and I believe they did over 40 Naz Reid tattoos that evening. But I remember as I was leaving, he showed me the list, and there was over 100 names on the list signed up to get a tattoo. They could only get to 40. So if you were one of those people who wanted a Naz Reid tattoo at Wolves Fest, but they didn't get to you, head out to Falling Knife this Friday night for Wolves Suns. I recommend going out to Falling Knife to watch Wolves games amongst Wolves fans for every game, projection screen, sound on. But I think an 8 p.m. Friday night game against the Suns sounds like the most ideal type of night to hang out at Falling Knife and watch the Wolves. I just think it's so cool that this brewery exists within this fan base for this fan base. And enjoy it. And pick up some cans of Second Apron with my face on them to bring home when you're out there watching the game. That's Falling Knife Brewing Company in Northeast Minneapolis. Today's show is also brought to you by Your Home Improvement Company. You guys know the drill. I've been telling you about Your Home Improvement Company for a long time. But if you do have a home improvement need, that's the idea. But with all of these advertisers that we have, we try to work with people who have things that you're going to want to be spending money on anyways. I know there's a chunk of you out there who do have a home improvement need, maybe that you want to get done before the winter. They got the windows deal going. Buy 2 windows, get 2 windows free through us, 30% off bathroom renovations. Whatever the home improvement project is, they're done by certified local professionals and backed with a lifetime warranty. Also, whatever the project is, they offer great financing deals that require 0 money down, 0 interest, and 0 payments until 2027. Contact Your Home Improvement Company by calling 866-777-YHIC or by going to yourhomeimprovementco.com. Your Home Improvement Company, where it's your home made better. All right, but before the break, talked about Randle a couple times in what you were getting into, and I also have Oklahoma City on my mind
Yeah.
You and I won't do another show before that Oklahoma City game. And I want to talk about both of those things, Randall, and a little bit about that OKC matchup.
Yeah.
We're sitting at the game last night, and we're talking about it a little bit, and you're like, I'm not sure Julius is going to score 10 points in that game against the Thunder. One, I think I disagree with that. Two, I get where you're coming from. But I was looking into some Julius stuff this morning, and to put words in your mouth, your reasoning for that with Julius Randle is the ball pressure that the Oklahoma City Thunder present turns Julius Randle, as we saw in the conference finals, even when he's playing at a very high level, into a very high turnover player. This season, thus far, a lot of bad teams, but Julius Randle has far and away his lowest turnover rate of his career. And I mean, and it's like elite for like bigs. Like Cleaning the Glass has, amongst bigs, Julius Randle is an 87th percentile turnover rate. Not many bigs handle the ball as much as he does. So amongst the bigs that handle the ball, Julius has been elite in not turning it over. Is that a for sure proof of what he's going to be able to do against a heavy ball pressure team and a strong team like the Oklahoma City Thunder? No, but it is trending in the right direction. And I think a huge development when we kind of zoom down the line, zoom out and look at how this Wolves team could look against a Thunder team in the playoffs. If Julius Randle is controlling the ball better, the Wolves have a significantly better chance of beating that Thunder team in a single game or a series.
I agree with everything you just said, other than the fact that I think he will struggle more than you do. If you recall last night, I asked him in the locker room why.
I got that. Let me find that. I'll play that clip.
Because I think that is the key to his not turning the ball.
Yes. No, this was good. This was actually got me to go down the turnover rabbit hole. Here's Britt and Julius.
You used to have a lot of back to the basket game, and Finch was talking about before last season that's where a lot of the turnovers came from. You've eliminated a lot of that this year. Was that work in the summertime?
Yeah, I mean, I know when I turn my back, they're coming. So I just got to be strong when I do spin, play off of 2 feet more, and then also just don't spin.
Don't pick up your dribble and your feet keep moving.
Or pick up my dribble. And, just be strong with the ball and then make a decision, or just don't spin. I know areas on the floor where I can spin. I know areas on the floor where I can't, because I know they're coming, for the steal on my blind side. So, and then I think just my teammates, have a better understanding of how to move around me when I'm in those spots than they did last year at this time, obviously. So,
go ahead.
I think what OKC does way better than any other team in the NBA is half-court traps inside the three-point arc. I just think that they come with the help and they rotate so effectively and efficiently that it is very, very hard to spin in general. And what I did notice about the last year's playoffs against OKC was when Randall's back to the basket was happening, and they had seen enough film on him to know when he would be delaying that, when he would be gathering himself to make his moves, they immediately bum rushed him and got a lot of turnovers that way. And I have noticed that he almost never plays back to the basket, or if he does, he has his dribble going and he's already moving into his footwork patterns. He's not standing put, just bouncing the ball. The first 2 weeks he was in a Timberwolves uniform in regular season games, he did that constantly. That was his deal. And
that's how he played in New York.
The elimination of that, I think, is a really, really admirable recognition by a seasoned, proven vet that enabled him to take a next leap forward. And I give him a lot of credit for that. I think that improvement going up against, again, a defense that is unlike any other in the NBA, especially if they're game planning. It'll be interesting to see if Ant gets back on track and whether they need to divide more of their time on Ant as well as Julius. But if Julius remains really kind of the focal point of play creation. Because Ansys are down this year, despite the fact that there's no real de facto point guard out there a lot of the times. Julius Randle is the de facto point guard. The Thunder will realize this. They will scheme, I think, to take away his playmaking as well as his footwork shooting. And if he picks up his dribble, that's when I think he's in trouble, because I think spins off the pickup when he doesn't have a chance to put it on the deck anymore. That's when OKC does a great job. Now, Randall's fantastic. I'm not saying that he couldn't very well go off for 24 or something. I think they will be difficult if they do. I think it will be a great test of how well he can stay in a very, very good rhythm. But I'm just saying that defense, I've seen them take out players that are just, I mean, that Luka Doncic game against the Lakers, where it was 70-38 at halftime, and Austin Reeves, I mean, they've got guys, they've got Chet and Hartenstein down low. They've got Lou Dort when he's healthy, who will take care of Ant as a single team, which will enable them to do more gang guarding of Randall. And they've got guys like a Caruso who just gets underneath you regardless of how big or small you are. So it's just, it certainly isn't a knock on Julius Randle, who, as I mentioned, I mean, I ripped them all last year. I totally admit that he's made those criticisms look foolish. And I admire his improvement this year. I just think he's going against one of the best defenses I've seen, rivaled only by the Wolves 2 years ago and some of those Pop Duncan teams on the Spurs.
You said take a player out, and the Thunder do that. I think this is like a overly simplified, without X's and O's, but I think generally speaking in basketball, how you take out a player who can both score and pass is the ability to limit their scoring with a single offender, without help, without doubles, without those sort of things. Right. And Julius Randle is the perfect player to sort of beta test that against.
Exactly.
Because if you can't guard him one-on-one, he's going to cook you. And if he starts cooking you, they're going to have to start bringing doubles or have that heavy gap help in there, and then he's going to be able to spray off it as the playmaker that he is. What Oklahoma City can do, there are, I don't know what the number is. I would actually like to compile a list of this at some point this season of like how many guys in the league seem comfortable guarding Julius one-on-one, and he doesn't have that big advantage. It's not a long list, but a handful of them play for the Oklahoma City Thunder.
And I would argue that they won't single cover him very much. I think
they're a late double team.
And the other thing, they not only bring double teams, but everybody has their hands up. It is really, really hard to pass over their traps.
Yeah, like once you get into the interior and pass out. Yeah.
And they're rangy, and everybody who's not in that like two or three people doing the double teams knows that the passer is in trouble, and they're looking to filch the passing lanes. It's what made D'Lo a serviceable defender in the high wall the first year Finch was here in his full season, is that D'Lo was not a good defender, but he could recognize when a team was in trouble and where the ball might go. And I think OKC has good defenders who also recognize that and are brilliant. I mean, Wallace is fantastic at that. He's also a very good on-ball defender, but he's really good at recognizing routes. And I just think they're really well schooled in knowing a team's habits, knowing a player's habits. And Randall has habits. His bag is deep, and I think it will be a lot of fun watching it, which all this brings to mind why it's been so frustrating to watch this season, because we had so little of this. We had so little of, being able to talk about this can happen against this. What do you talk about when you talk about the Wizards or the Kings or the Jazz even?
I've been trying to figure it out, man.
Will they be sufficiently motivated to
Yeah.
do that we know things that we know that they can do. It's not going to be a matter of motivation when Randle goes against the Thunder. It's going to be a matter of execution. Who executes best? Julius Randle has been executing at an extremely high level this season. Oklahoma City's defense, especially in the half court, has been executing extremely well. Last year, they were great in transition. This year, I think they've continued that great transition defense, but their half court defense is even better. And some of that is because Chet and Hartenstein have both played a lot more together and are both around a lot longer.
Chet's just better too.
And we haven't even talked about, Jalen Williams has been out all year. Lou Dort's been injured for like 5 or 6 games, and they're still 4 points per 100 possessions better on defense than anybody else in the NBA.
So it's going to be, they are the hardest team to execute against.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. What game did Anthony Edwards execute best in this season offensively?
That's a good question.
I think you know the answer.
Portland, maybe.
Yes. Portland was opening night.
Yeah.
Portland was
Pressure. They brought the
eyeballs
pressure.
on you.
Right.
I want to keep pulling on this OKC thread a little bit, but I want to get to Ant because I think I don't mean this as an excuse. I just think it is what it is. I think boredom sunk in with Ant this weekend. And unfortunately, as a product of that boredom, the production goes down, and
It's a cycle.
it's a cycle that whatever is a different topic, but with boredom, Ant drops out from time to time, which frankly just drops him out of like an MVP conversation. If there's going to be 5 to 10 to 15 games a year that boredom wins, it's just the numbers aren't going to be there. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has never in his career had a stat line like Ant did last night, and,
Right.
and Ant's had that like 3-4 games in a row.
Right.
But you said, if Ant gets back on track, I do think Ant will get back on track against the Thunder because he will be less bored and he will execute at a higher level. And that sounds like giving him a pass. I think it is giving him a pass and simultaneously an indictment in some ways. But Ant's going to play better in that game.
Mm-hmm.
I would feel extremely confident in that. Like Ant will play better against the Thunder than he played against the Wizards.
Absolutely.
And those are like literally the polar
and that
opposites
is an
of
indictment.
defense.
I mean, that is the thing. And that is what he vowed not to do throughout preseason. I'm going to be more consistent. On a Tuesday night in February, I'm going to show up. I have to show up against the lesser teams.
Going to get 50.
Yada, yada, yada.
Has not got 50.
Again, I feel compelled to always add these caveats for people who want to overreact to what we're saying. Anthony Edwards is a marvelous player. The Timberwolves wouldn't be anywhere near what they've been the last 5 years or so. He has a flaw in his game that is stubborn, and it is impacting at the elite level that he is at, and it is separating him. You mentioned the MVP conversation. Call it whatever you want. I mean, Jokic, SGA, Wemby is kind of in Ant's range right now, where all of a sudden you go, Wemby's certainly off tonight, but he's younger and he's had a lot less time. Wemby is kind of like where Ant was 3 or 4 years ago. Whether or not he'll be able to season himself out of it, I don't know. But there are players, they just show up and they are who they are. And they get rid of flaws.
Right.
And this flaw has stayed with Ant. And there is an argument to be made. I've toyed with thinking this way simply because being extremely frustrated with Ant every year doesn't make as much sense as if you say, okay, look, the guy who has such keen, acute emotional intelligence that he makes everybody around the organization feel better about themselves and is free to give credit to his teammates. And when there's tension, is enabling to say the right things and do the right things. That kind of carefree core at the center of him that is infectious joy that liberates other people may get in the way, may be bored if things aren't the right way. It just
I don't know.
maybe,
Is that the right term?
what?
Boredom? Like,
Well, I mean,
I think it's like,
well, I mean,
close.
laziness is too strong, I think.
Definitely too strong.
I think that it really comes down to everybody says Ant has a phenomenal amount of confidence in himself. That is like the thing that is universally said about him.
Mhm.
Well, on the one hand, it's mostly a really good thing. It enables him to push himself to higher and higher levels most every year. But there is also a component that says, what am I doing playing against these chumps?
Yeah.
You know, and that's also an overwhelming confidence. That's the downside of the overwhelming confidence. All I'm saying is, I don't know if he can be a perennial legitimate MVP candidate.
Well, he absolutely can be a
without
candidate.
getting rid of that.
Yeah.
But I mean, in the conversation of SGA, Jokic, maybe Wemby, people.
But Wemby drops out a little bit.
Okay.
I think I would say the people who don't are the people ahead of him that are surefire ahead of him in the MVP conversation. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Nikola Jokic, Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Yeah.
Those guys do not. I mean, I don't know. Maybe somebody could pull up for a 4-game stretch or something like that looks like this Ant homestand from those guys.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Ant, the Wolves just finished a 4-game homestand against Sacramento, Denver, Dallas, and Washington. Yeah, and in that time, Ant shot 3 of 30 from 3, 38% effective field goal percentage, rebound numbers down, assist numbers down. Still, still averaged 22, like still found a way to score, even if it was inefficient. But, you compare that to the beginning of the season or the previous 4-game chunks that he's played, and it's nothing like it. So the question is, we're just looking for whys here right now.
Right.
And when Kyle and I did it after the Denver game on Saturday, and we're 2 out of the 4 into this, I was like, well, at a minimum, it's a shooting slump. And I don't want to say it's more than a shooting slump because he just wasn't hitting his threes,
Right.
He was still somewhat effective from 2, all those sort of things. But I think for this to kind of carry out over 4 games, to kind of see his demeanor in the locker room last night afterwards, it feels like something more like boredom than it does anything else.
Well, again, this is one of the, I keep coming back to this, unfortunately, but he can look you in the face and say, hey, we're 10-5. What are you talking about here?
Sure.
And that's the problem with a bunch of cupcakes in a row, is that you get to say, I am beyond reproach. Check the standings, and it's difficult to argue with somebody who is capable of such uplift and infectious goodwill and is able to still deliver victories coasting sometimes. I mean, we won't sugarcoat it. There was a time when he and Julius were passing the ball back and forth on the perimeter and went off somebody's leg, and they either assumed it was going to be a backcourt violation because one or the other of them was going to go back and get it in time, or a kick ball. But they just both watched it roll, and somebody from the Wizards picked it up and put it in the basket. Finch called timeout. I mean, that kind of attitude from your top 2 playmakers is a bad look. And I don't think that happens against a good team.
Yeah. Right. And it's all just goes to look at Ant's numbers in the playoffs, that's
although last year, not quite as sturdy.
I think that was a lot coverage related.
I agree. And to be fair, also last night, what we saw, especially in the 4th quarter, I think in the 3rd quarter, it wasn't this way, but Ant began to just say, I'm better for this team when I'm not engaged. And that's not totally true, but I think the best play made all night is when he did his usual drive 1 into 3, realized he couldn't do it, and then dished it to Rudy for a little floater from the baseline in like the last second of the clock.
Shot,
it was a grenade,
Yeah.
but at the same time, push shot. But that was recognition. Hey, I can't do it all tonight.
Right.
Even when I'm calling my own number in my mind, saying this is going to be my time to get these points. All of a sudden, oh, maybe it isn't. That's growth. And it's, again, you're looking at the glass as 1 quarter full. Then, you're trying to, make something. Yes, it's obvious that Ant's level of play is in a cycle of I'm not playing well, therefore, and we're still winning. Therefore,
right.
I'm just gonna see. I'm gonna wait and see if it passes, or something. It is.
I'm going to come back if they need me. But the problem is, if you've been kind of somewhat coasting, tend to like throw it into 4th gear. He's capable of doing it, but it's just you're probably not going to be able to do that every time. And
that's the dynamic writ on a macro level for the entire team when they need that. I mean, I know I'm really hammering this point, but unfortunately, it's
a story.
I've watched this team.
Yeah,
that is the dynamic for like the last 3 weeks.
Let's grab another break, and then I want to talk about a dynamic that has changed over this homestand in Naz Reid. We'll be back with Britt in a sec. Today's show is brought to you by Skims, and we are excited to have Skims back as a sponsor for the holiday season. You know the drill. Skims is now available on the men's side of things, specifically men's underwear, and I promise you they would make for the most comfortable men's underwear you could gift to a family member this holiday season. My personal favorites are the stretch 5-inch boxer briefs because they're a two-way player. Wear one pair to the gym, another pair for lounging at home. With Skims, you don't need to have different brands of underwear for different activities. And if a stretch type of brief is not your style, Skims has you there too. They also have cotton briefs, amongst many other styles. I think you should try and find a pair that works for you. Be more comfortable. Shop Skims Men's at skims.com and Skims stores and let them know we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. The show is sponsored by BetterHelp, and this November, BetterHelp is encouraging everyone to reach out, check in on friends, reconnect with loved ones, and remind the people in your life that you're there. Just as it can take a little courage to send that message or grab coffee with someone on your team you haven't seen in a while, reaching out for therapy can feel difficult too, but it's worth it. It's almost always one of those things that leaves people wondering, why didn't I do this sooner? We know the holiday season isn't easy for everyone, and it's important to stay connected. We're healthier when we have community and when we have support. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is one of the world's largest online therapy platforms, having served over 5 million people globally, and it works. With an average rating of 4.9 out of 5 for live sessions based on over 1.7 million client reviews. This month, don't wait to reach out, whether you're checking in on a friend or reaching out to a therapist yourself. BetterHelp makes it easier to take that first step. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/DaneMoore. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/DaneMoore. All right, Brett, let's do a little Naz Reid. He's back.
Yep.
Is that fair to say?
I do. I mean, again, it's certainly compared to what he was when I watched the telecast from last night's game this morning. Jim Pete was putting things in the first 11 games, last 3 or 4 games. And so if you do frame it like that, clearly he is back. What I find interesting is he had 66 points in the first half of those 4 games and 15 in the second half. And I asked Finch about it. Where's the discrepancy? Why is that happening? And he said pace and intention, meaning, and Naz has always been, I mean, way back in the J-Mac days. What do we call that? There was a word for the
Iowa Ants.
Wolves, the Iowa Ants. Iowa Ants, right. Because Ant would be out there with a bunch of guys from Iowa, including J-Mac and Naz. And they would play so much more up-tempo than and this is before they even had Rudy. So it was down-tempo from the starters, and then you add Rudy Gobert. So
it was basically Ant on, Cat off, Nas and J-Mac out there, and then
And
like a
Jaylen
Jaylen Noel.
maybe, right.
Yeah.
But
Guys who would run. Torian
they
Prince.
cavorted. They basically just ran around. It was a circus. It was fun, and they weren't that good all the time back then. So it was I mean that J-Mac pocket pass to Ant driving right up the gut
to Nas.
I'm sorry,
yeah.
to Nas driving right up the gut was glorious. I mean, it was just one of those things. It's like Jaylen Clark steals. It's things you go to the game looking forward to seeing. Exactly. So that Nas, when that Nas can get unlocked, Nas threw in a jump hook over two people really contesting him 2 games ago, I think it was. And I tweeted out, when Nas is hitting highly contested jump hooks, you know that things are back, and he does the big jelly left hand, or he does the, shrug 3 from the corner with like that much time.
It's inside the 3-point arc that when that's clean and effective and quick from Nas, that's like, and obviously you can point to the 3-point numbers and stuff like that.
They're stupendous.
Let me just, I have those
He's
here.
14 for 29 and Donte's 13 for 29 over the last 4 games.
I do want to talk about Donte too, but these are Nas's first half scoring totals the last 3 games. 3 games ago, he had 17 in the first half. He was 4 of 5 from 3, 2 of 3 from 2. Against Dallas, he had 19 points in the first half, 2 of 4 from 3, 6 of 7 from 2. And then last night against Washington, he had 23 points in the first half, 4 of 7 from 3, 5 of 6 from 2. It's been I think it's inspired the wins. I mean, I think if you had gotten the Nas you got for the first 11 games of the season in, one of those games against, even Sacramento or Dallas,
one of the losses, I agree.
Yeah, it might have been. It could have led to a loss.
Could have beaten a winning team.
Yeah, yeah, or they would have lost to a losing team
that too.
without
Right.
potentially.
Yeah, I was thinking more in terms of you had that Nas, in one of those Laker games, or something.
Yeah, like the Reeves game.
Yeah,
and they did it. But it is giving, which I think is necessary. Like they do need additional offensive engines.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at the beginning of the season, fortunately for the team, while Nas's engine was not running, they consistently had Julius Randle running
like
every single game.
80% effective field goal percentage.
Yeah, and then you had Ant when he was playing.
Yep,
was another full
and
power, and you had McDaniels. And I think the way I put it to Kyle was I think they every night need an option of the 4th engine, which has to be Donte or Nas, because the reality of those top 3 scorer guys, Ant, Julius, and Jaden, you're not going to get all 3 firing on all cylinders every time. So I think there's this huge safety net of having Donte or Nas be able to be,
and 1 out of every 6 or 7 games, Rudy.
Offensively?
Yeah. I mean, he'll get off for 17 or 20 or something. It happens 5 or 6 times a year. So 5 or 6 times out of 82, maybe 1 out of every.
Typically, those are heavy offensive rebound games and against.
And also finding him early in bad opposing centers.
Yeah. I don't think I put him quite into the offensive engine bin I'm creating right now, but
he's the emergency tank.
Yeah. That's true. I just think
after it hits the red line, you get into this.
Yeah. I think it's big for this team to have this, not because when you do have the Nas engine running, Nas's defense is typically elevated as well. Let's combo this into some.
Okay, but one thing I do want to say is, it's a feels thing, but it's a legitimate feels thing in the NBA. When you get a guy like Nas going, that's infectious basketball.
Yep.
Because he does stuff, when he does a baseline slam, boom.
It's the same thing you were talking about with Ant, that infectious energy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, as great as Julius is, he gives you a lift, but it feels like he's like this plodding tanker. And it isn't like the soaring thing.
It is different.
Julius is the ground game, in football or something.
He's Derrick Henry.
And Naz is like the wide receiver, who makes the acrobatic catch in the end zone.
Williams.
Yeah, exactly.
Take the top off the defense.
So that kind of stuff, Naz has always been capable of that way back in the Iowa Ant days.
Yep.
And what is interesting to me, he's not getting to his trips to the line are career low right now. He does play lighter. I was actually really surprised that he came into this season at the same weight or maybe even a little thinner than he was last season, knowing he was going to get more 4-5 time and not more 3-4 time. And I do think sometimes he is looking to avoid contact and to be speedy rather than brawny.
Mm-hmm.
I think he could be both. I'd like to see him lean into contact a little bit more, especially when he's finishing. On the other hand, he doesn't have a good relationship with the refs. He gets a terrible whistle. He is thin-skinned about whistles. So having whistles be a greater part of his game does have a downside. But I would love to see, I think that's one of the, little jet fuel in the engine that you could do is if, more 3-point plays and a little bit more being able to draw fouls when otherwise he's defensed well. But his dribble, his ability to shoot with either hand, the quick release on his threes, he's just an electrifying player when those skills are engaged. And it's a buoy for his teammates. When he's playing that way, like he's played in the first halves of these last 4 games, they've been bursts. And as you said, I think the lowest one was 17 points.
Yeah.
And Naz isn't getting any more than like 12 to 15 minutes in those halves. So he's racking up a point a minute. And to Finch's point, and it's accurate, I think, pace is always going to be his friend. That is, it's so obvious he grew up as a playground guy. He's not a gym guy. He's a playground guy. He's a guy that go up and down and, that's the way it goes. And it's just a lot of fun to see that locked in. I'm glad we don't have to wonder about the death of his sister anymore and whether or not that was weighing on him. Maybe it is, but now that he's cleared that in a 4-game span, it seems like something that isn't an insurmountable hurdle for him right now.
There's inherently a volatility to Naz's game.
Yes.
And it's a wild card, for a good, in a card game, in like a good way that you can play. We read through those numbers, 7 in the first half, 17 points, 19 points, 23 points. Like the 3-point shooting is 4 of 5, 2 of 4, 4 of 7. So that's 10 of 16 from 3 in first halves over the last 3. Yeah. That's like unsustainably, that's not going to be consistent for any player in the league doing that. And I think that makes him an unreliable 4th engine in this weird analogy that I'm using. But somewhat that's okay because you have the other 3 engines.
Right.
And you have DiVincenzo, who can also give you that upscale volatility from a 3-point shooting standpoint. But what I've liked about Donte, and I think this is a difference from Naz, is there in the times when the wild card isn't being played and you're getting the upscale of production from Donte, it does seem like, especially this season, more so than last year, there's a baseline of some consistency out there with him, and I'll get your thoughts on that. But I asked Julius Randle about that in the locker room. Donte specifically, I thought this was an interesting answer.
Dante's play of late, like sometimes it hasn't been a huge box score, but it's felt like a big impact.
He's just like a calm presence out there. You know what you're gonna get from him. He's not gonna make mistakes, or he's there to he's always gonna be in the right spot. Similar to Mike in a different way.
He said that. He said he kind of learned that from Mike.
He's just solid. He's not too high, too low. So he's very just a solid, calm presence out there. And then, obviously, we know what he's going to bring. And then he has games where, he can make 7, 8 threes too. So it's definitely a great wild card for us.
So I stole that wild card line from Julius, but they're both wild cards.
Yeah,
Donte and Naz are wild cards, but they're like different. It's a different shape or something.
There is a cost to reining in Donte. He is a chaos creator on defense. I don't think his rebounding is as strong, and I don't think his disruption on defense.
He boxes out, though.
Huh?
He boxes out.
He does box out, but I like him better when he's just he's on the move getting rebounds.
Yeah.
There was games last season where he had that Naz like magic of, put it this way, he bodies up people out on the perimeter extremely well. It doesn't always work. It depends on what kind of game the refs are calling, but he moves his feet sideways really well, and he knows how to get into people on the perimeter on defense. He's wiry. I think he's really tough in terms of physicality. And I think that he's dialed some of that disruption back for the sake of what Julius is talking about, being able to be in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing, being more reliable, being a little bit more point guard minded. In terms
Mike
of
minded.
Yeah. But so much of that, what Donte can't do that Mike can do is know what's happening on the floor, really good half-court vision, and then having the skills to execute that. I think he's always going to be a combo guard at heart, and I think that he's always going to be better when he's beside a guy who, at the very least, is like that or more of a playmaker.
Mm-hmm.
I think that what I've really enjoyed about Donte thus far this season is that his recognition on help defense is truer and more accurate. What's funny is when there was a play like where he was going like in the opposite direction of the ball handle. Was that last game or the game before?
The Keyshawn George one we were talking about?
Where we went, whoa. It's like he was running away from the obvious place he should have been. And I don't know, but the fact that it happened was so disconcerting because that hasn't been the way Donte has been operating lately. Finch and Donte have had this dance since he's come here of Donte likes to be in a certain role, and whether it's catch and shoot versus pull up, or whether it is starting or coming off the bench, whether it's point guard or
it's just role definition.
Yeah, a lot of it is role definition, but Donte has a very specific idea of what he's best at, and I think Finch has a little bit of a different idea. But
don't you think that's kind of come together this season?
I think Finch has given more than Donte has, but I think they both have given. And
How so? How is Finch?
He
just giving him the starts,
and he is the titular point guard anyway. The guy who's in the point guard position. And his assist to turnover ratio is better. His assists are up. But I feel like it's been, especially, I think it was up and down to begin with. The Portland start remains such a weird thing to have happen. So bizarre that
No. It's how they were guarding. They're picking. Donte was randomly started at point guard. I mean, or unbeknownst to us,
because Mike couldn't handle the pressure, and Donte had 6 turnovers.
I mean, I don't think prior to that game, the decision to start Donte DiVincenzo was about Mike Conley not being able to handle ball pressure. I think that was about wanting to have Donte DiVincenzo being in the starting lineup, wanting to have more of this.
As opposed to everything they've done the entire preseason. See, that's the thing. It's like they preach continuity the entire time, and then 12 hours before the season, they make this huge change in the starting lineup that wounds the pride of an 18-year veteran, and gets a guy who likes to start, has pretty much said he likes to start in the lineup, a little bit disruptive that way. And then that guy can't handle Portland's pressure, gets destroyed to the point where he can't even play in the second half practically.
Has there been another game where Donte has done anything like that has happened?
No.
Okay, so then let's my opinion is we got to give a lot of that to the fact that it was Portland. We didn't know that Portland played that way. It was the first game of
a pretty good idea last year.
No team had ever picked up full court as much as Portland did in the first 5-10 games of the season. It was a different level of full court pressure that how you couldn't have known the extent to which they were doing it. Clearly Donte didn't.
Right.
They were not prepared for that. And I think you can put that on Fitch. I'm just not putting that on Donte because I think he was put in a different role than he should have been, and then it ended up being
with that.
more tenuous given the opponent.
My greater point is, I think, first of all, we agree. Here's what we agree on. We agree on the fact that Donte is having a very good year. We agree on the fact that he has circumscribed his game, even some of the things he's really good at, to even things out and be more of a cog in a system than he was before. And I think that in the long run is helpful, especially given the fact that the point guard position remains in flux and unreliable when it really comes down to it, I think. I think that going into any playoff series this coming April or May, the point guard position will be a pressure point that gets really scrutinized. And so
certainly on Wednesday against Oklahoma City.
Yeah, that too. So I do think that it's been a success story, but I also think that we lose some top end Donte in terms of being that spark plug. The way he sparks the team now is the occasional really good defensive play, and when he's on a heater from three. I was really impressed last night. He was making shots all over the place, and it came down in transition. He could have pulled up and shot the three, and he threw a really, really high arching skip pass to
Naz.
That Naz was so wide open that Naz could still get the shot off, even though like three players ran toward him in the time the ball was in the air. But the very fact that he saw him and made that pass, that was sharing. That's a point guard mentality, but also just a teammate enhancing mentality. And I see that more from Donte this year thus far too. So all those
in that ways he is point guard-ish, and pretty much every other way functionally he's not.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just in the DNA. He is. I look forward to Donte when the competition gets tougher, getting into a little bit more of these bruising. You need to be physical on the perimeter. Okay, I'm going to be physical on the perimeter. So yeah, I think that the issue is role. The issue is this team ideally would be better composed to slot him in a way that gives full flower to everything he can do, the disruption as well as the compromises he's made. And I think that I was thinking about this morning. This team, we talk about Tim Connolly doing a great job all the time, and I'm a fan. It's not synergistically put together that well. They don't have greater than the sum of their parts potential as much as some other teams around the league do.
Do we know that?
No, we don't know it because the competition hasn't been there. But I mean, you have Rudy Gobert is always going to be a difficult fit, especially if you want to emphasize him to do what he does best. Julius Randle has been so good that you have to lean into that. That also is an interesting fit. Donte's skill set is an interesting fit. I just talked about, 3 guys on the starting lineup who
they traded for all of them.
Huh?
They traded for all those guys for the reason that they saw them to be inefficiencies in the market, undervalued in the market. But the reason those guys were undervalued, to your point, is that incorporation of Rudy Gobert is a little bit rougher than it is.
That's the word I should have used. This team is very, very hard to incorporate.
Yeah, right.
It is, because and then you got Naz.
Julius is hard to incorporate too.
Exactly. And as great as Jaylen Clark is, and he's underrated on offense because he doesn't touch the ball more than a second and he's moving things around, but he's still he's a weird fit. So
Kyle Anderson. Yeah.
So, and then you got the Dillingham factor. You've got to start to see, you need that, 5 to 15 minutes.
Right.
You got to keep giving him that seasoning.
Okay. I take your point. I get where you're, where you're.
And so but for a team that's generally regarded as having a probably a 50% chance of getting home court advantage in a very tough Western Conference in the playoffs, I think that's a lot of interesting fits. And another reason why Finch, you would think is a really good coach.
I don't think it rules out the possibility of being a greater than the sum of their parts.
I think they can be more greater than the sum of their parts than they are now. But can they be a synergistic machine? I mean, like, for some reason, Kyle Anderson fit in so many different ways. He was like that piece that you could put in so many different ways. And Nickeil Alexander was the same way. When you start to take out those pieces that are more flexible, that you can wedge in and they get smaller or they get larger according to how you want to build something, it's harder to fit this team than it has been before.
My last thing on greater than the sum of their parts, I think the pathway for this team to be greater than the sum of their parts is to simultaneously be an elite defensive team with Rudy on the floor and an elite offensive team with Rudy off the floor.
And
that's hard to do both of those things. And obviously this team in the playoffs and even thus far this season has run into issues in being able to do that. But that's the pathway. If they are able to figure that out, that becomes extremely difficult to match up against when you have to go, we're playing against a Rudy Gobert drop coverage defense that is just going to deter us. It is just going to drag us down. But then simultaneously, they can go into this other gear, which is full throttle. It's some evolution of the Iowa Ants. Julius Randle is here, and it feels like that too. Now, those are very polarizing styles of play, and we feel that when we watch and we see those things, and it does feel incongruent. But I don't, to Finch's continuity over the course of the season, finding themselves over the course of the season, I'm not ruling that out, or I'm at least seeing the path to this team being a true contender includes both of those versions of themselves fully flowering and simultaneously being able to coexist. Is that like kind of a long parlay to be able to hit all three of those legs? Sure. But that possibility, I think, does exist. And in that comes the upside of a team with funky players finding a way to be funky together and be a lot greater than the sum of their parts.
I think that is extremely well put. I think that that little 2-minute chunk there is excellent observation. My response would be, I'm a lot more confident of the offense being able to do that than defense being able to do that in terms of the skills. But in terms of the will and the prioritization within the organization, I think they're still thinking it's necessary to be a defense-oriented identity. And I think that may get in the way of the parlay that you're trying to say right now. I agree. I thought it was brilliantly set up, and I really like that framework moving forward in terms of how to watch this team and what they are able to do once they start playing good people. But it remains threading that thing is going to be tough, and you need the right strategic plan as to how that. It isn't even a blend; it's a variation. When you want to use hard power and soft power, like in politics or whatever, being able to accomplish both of those things at the same time. The momentum of the identity is defense. The upside potential is offense. And that is going to be, that's the needle you have to thread the needle you're talking about. Right. And I have less confidence in their ability to do that.
Yeah, that's hard to do. And if those things are required to win a championship, it makes it somewhat long odds to win a championship. You know what what's really hard to do?
Beat OKC.
Win a championship. Yeah, but how many teams have the potential parlay that could hit to make this happen? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I do think I can make the argument that the Wolves have that, even if it's going to take these next 67 games to figure it out over the course of time. But I think it's in there. I mean, I think it's a non-zero possibility, and I don't think there's that many teams, that have it. You have anything else on that? You want to do a little Clark to wrap it up?
Sure. I mean,
yes, you do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, I go to the games because I love the game. I started writing about the game because I love the game.
I go to the games because I love Jaylen Clark.
Well, I mean, you go to watch people who give you joy when you see them. Yeah. Anybody who watches Jaylen Clark play that doesn't appreciate how much fun it is to see somebody inject single-minded desire into an equation against incredibly talented athletes and succeed on a regular basis just because he's willing to do things that almost no one else is willing to do. I mean, he's like a smarter Vando, and he's not as big as Vando, but he plays almost as big as Vando. He's on the boards.
Sure.
His deflections vertically as well as horizontally indicate that he plays like a large wing sometimes. And yet he can guard a point guard, better than Jaden McDaniels. And he is incredibly limited on offense, but has eliminated almost all the ways his offense will hurt you. He does not do things to hurt the offense that in a normal progression of events would be the logical thing for him to do, even with his limited skill set. He denies himself the temptation of going outside of his boundaries on a regular basis. He does not take the bait on offense. If it isn't automatic, absolutely clear what he should do, he gets off it. And he gets off it in a way that isn't usually a non-purposeful pass. Even the passes that are done quickly are. He had a play the other night where he hit Rudy. He was in the corner for a three, and rather than shoot the three from the corner, Rudy was wide open underneath. He hits Rudy. Rudy gets an N1. I think he screwed up the guy who was guarding him and knocked the legs out from under him after the guy fouled Rudy. But it was a classic Jaylen Clark. I mean, that's a point guard play.
I was going to say high IQ play.
High IQ. The guy has an amazingly high IQ, and yet he's just a dog, They interviewed Elson Turner, at halftime about Jaylen Clark. And he said, yeah, we need it. Yeah. And then he said, and he's young enough to be able to do it for 82 games for many years. So that tells you what Alan Turner thinks of him. He's going to be a staple on any organization I'm going to be with for the indefinite future.
And then Finch called him a dog chasing a car. There's a lot of use of dog with Jaylen Clark. Yeah. Also, I asked Rudy Gobert about Jaylen Clark last night. Dogs also came up in this answer too.
I mean, he's a dog. That's what I love about him. You know, he plays every possession like his life depends on it, and I think this is contagious. You know, and the other team can feel it, and our team can feel it, and you know, and he's still young, still learning, but he's taking any challenge. You know, and it's great for us.
Does he remind you of anybody?
Maybe a little bit of Tony Allen. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ask Mike about that.
Maybe ask Mike about it.
Yeah. That actually was a great answer.
Yeah.
Allen was a little bit bigger, but he had the same kind of.
Was Allen bigger, like taller?
I think so. I mean, maybe the league is just bigger, and
it was a
girthier
league
like
then.
6'6".
No, I bet you he's closer
to
like 6'4". Yeah.
Is he?
Yeah.
That's Clark too. Clark's
6'4". Tony Allen is listed on Basketball Reference as 6'4", 213. Apparently, Jaylen Clark's name doesn't come up when you do Clark. And Jaylen is listed at 6'5", 205.
Really, 6'5".
I mean, these don't.
No, but still,
I bet you he's not taller than Tony Allen. The heights have gotten juiced.
I think the part about contagious is accurate. And he said, when he said contagious, you immediately think of everybody on his team. But he said, and the other team, Rudy has the never minds. There's got to be something for when Clark is approaching and people turn it over.
See you later.
Distracted. Yeah. Well, just, I mean, like, or, you know, here he comes or something.
Yeah. They don't want any part of it.
There have been in the last 2 or 3 games, I've seen at least once a game, somebody take their eye off the ball to account for how fast Jaylen Clark is coming at them.
Watch when the guy, whoever the other team is, bringing the ball up the floor and Jaylen's, picking him
off
up.
It. He does not want to bring.
Well, he gets up, but specifically the movement of the point guard in the situation. Typically, like a point guard is going to come down the high quad, right? And they're going to come to the middle of the floor and get into the offense from there. What these players will do is they will veer off right or left, because they are trying to get away from Jaylen Clark. And that seems like a small thing, but now if you're the opposing,
of the floor,
you're playing on the right side of the floor,
right?
Or you're starting the possession on the right side of the floor. And now all you can do now, it's like, okay, pistol. Now this guy's coming back up. And here we are. Now this guy is now DiVincenzo is chasing him, and now he's back up at the top. And finally, here we are where the Wizards were at the top of the floor, and now there's 11 seconds left on the shot clock.
And your pistol, you have a weak side and a strong side on your pistol now. You don't have a choice.
Yeah.
No, it's the more you know about the game, the more you can appreciate how effective he is.
Sure.
But I'm just saying, even as a, you don't know anything about the game and you go to watch it, who is this guy that's just constantly bothering everybody on the court? It's so much fun to watch. And at the end of the day, sports should be a hedonistic experience. It should be something where, you go. I've always been this big thing about, rather than being a fan of a team, I like being a fan of the game, and I appreciate great team or great teamwork. And that's kind of what I always root for. Any team that has Jaylen Clark on it is going to be a team I like better than I did when he wasn't on that team. and it's just players like that are just
kind of like the Hawks this year.
Exactly. Right? I've seen a lot more of the Hawks because of that. And once Trey went down and Nob became more of a piece, huge difference. It's fun. And, we started this a little bit with the whole Tim Connolly thing about mismatch or whatever. He got that guy in the second round, and it's because he had to punt an entire year of him.
53rd overall or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, just highway robbery.
Jaylen Clark is shooting 36% from 3 as of today.
Kind of in between us. A
Yeah.
little more
Well,
on
no,
your
that's
end.
a
A little
perfect
more
number.
on your end.
That's what I'm saying. So I'm a little higher than Britt is on Jaylen Clark as a shooter, but I feel like 36 is a good line. Are you saying he finishes the season?
If I will be very happy if he stays at 36.
No, what's your prediction?
35.
Okay, so under 36.
Yeah,
I'll take over 36.
I know.
I don't think, but I mean, I'm not in
You're
the
coming
40s.
off 40.
Yeah. I'm coming a little off of 40, but I think you're a non-problematic shooter if you're, over 36.
In your
30s.
favor, he has consistent mechanics and he has fantastic shot selection. He
Mhm.
won't shoot unless it's a good shot, and he has good mechanics.
And he's a confident person.
I just also think he's just never been a good shooter. I think the thing that makes him such a maniac on defense makes it hard for him to be a silky shooter.
Were you there when he chimed in during Naz's? Oh yeah, let me
I
play
thought
that.
that was rude. All of a
So
sudden I'm thinking, wow, you're getting a little too big for your britches, man.
no, but he's a ball breaker, you know?
I know.
So and I'll play this clip, but John asks Naz about his
You have
defense.
this?
Yeah, I do. I clipped it. Here it is.
Plays that you're making defensively at the rim are kind of more of what you expect of yourself. It seems like you're challenging more shots.
Yeah, even on the ball though, just a ton of engaged, locked in, and readiness from myself, and that's just how it's supposed to be all year. I mean, I think, like I said before, even if I'm not hitting shots, that's all the stuff that needs to happen. That's kind of the standard I hold myself to. So,
You're a defender?
not like you, not like you, but not like you, but just hold myself to a higher standard though.
That was funny.
And he said it a couple of other times.
He did say it a couple other times after the clip ended.
And then he says to the entire locker room and his teammates, Naz Reid, a defender.
Hey, it's moving in the right direction for Naz.
It is.
I don't
No,
mind
that's
Naz
what I
on
mean.
the
I
switch.
actually thought it was a little mean.
Yeah. Well,
But you know what?
Are you always super nice? You never give your friends a hard time when you're hanging out?
Yeah, I actually think that part
I
of
give
it
you a
is
hard time all the time.
the idea that he's always been somebody who's been so refreshing to talk to because he does not care what comes out of his mouth.
That's true.
I think is in keeping with all this.
Yeah.
And so it's just surprising. I think it is a function of him being more comfortable.
Sure.
Yeah. He's gone from he's got a two-way, he's got a contract to he's going to get paid.
As you would say, he's in the firmament, right? He's
Absolutely.
he's in it.
And back to our point, if the Wolves are going to have a defensive identity, and hats off to Jace Frederick. I mean, you and I have both thought this way, but nobody hammered that nail like Jace did. And he has a great piece, essentially a victory lap piece about, hey, here is here is Jaylen Clark, defender extraordinaire, with he brings receipts, and he's just a good piece. Jaylen Clark and Jaden McDaniels are the success stories, and the fact that they are so complementary in the success stories, because Jaylen Clark is going to be able to fill the void that McDaniels is leaving a little bit to become a more broad skilled player.
Yeah, broad skilled player. I thought you were going to say to be more of an offensive player, but it is to be a more broad skilled player because it's allowing Jaden to do more things
To play as
defensively
a
as well.
big on defense more, which I always have argued.
Have you ever thought about, like, if and when Rudy gets hurt this year, if you couldn't put Jaden to play minutes at the 4 and Rudy has to miss 10 games,
Exactly.
like, that's dicey. If you can't,
very
if you couldn't
dicey,
put
very
Jaden
dicey.
as a big.
We saw when Randle and Rudy were both out for 6 games in February, Naz and Jaden McDaniels play the front court as the starters, and McDaniels played as much 5 in the evolving scheme of position as Naz did, and he was better at it.
Sure.
And he's great at boxing out. He's great at defending the rim from different places. And that neither one of those things are really Naz's game.
Well, and Jaden doesn't have the freedom to be able to do that unless Jaylen Clark or Ant maybe are at the point of attack defensively.
Yeah. And you, to your point before about, adding layers, you need both Ant and Jaylen Clark to really lock down on defense if you're giving Jaden his run as a big.
Right. So we went a little long, but this
what else is new?
I think we rounded the bases. Yeah, I think we got them all. This was fun, listeners. You can check out Britt's weekly column over at Mid Post. He writes a little bit about that lighter schedule and some of the stuff we were talking about at the beginning of the episode. Generally speaking, throughout the season, we like that to be the rhythm of Britt coming on Thursdays after that column comes out on Wednesdays. So you check that out over at Mid Post as you're sitting down with a cup of coffee this weekend, to reflect on the Wolves. I appreciate you coming in here.
Sure.
I don't know. I mean, probably won't do another one until December because I'm
after Thanksgiving. You're on the road, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm on the road, not with the Timberwolves, but I'm going to be gone.
You're doing Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
With family. Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to be.
So you're not going to OKC.
I'm not. If I'm not even. Yeah. I don't even know if I'm a watch. I mean, I don't think. I mean, I'll watch it eventually. But
it'll be on national TV.
Yeah. That's what I needed. No, I'm actually, but it's funny in the context of the light schedule.
Oh yeah,
I'm gonna miss the Thunder game and then the Celtics game on the weekend. I'm not gonna get back till after that. So I guess for people listening, if you're still listening to this very last piece here, next week, will be Thanksgiving, as it always is. We'll be light. We'll do episode or 2 at the very beginning of the week, but then once I'm out of town, and we'll circle back.
We'll talk in December.
Yeah. Isn't it crazy? It's almost December. Jeez. So that's that'll be the schedule coming ahead. Again, appreciate you doing it. You guys can read Britt at Min Post, follow him on Twitter at Britt Robson. And tomorrow I'll be back with Kyle. But until then, he's Britt. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hot so you can find me in the crowd, yeah. Don't let standards ever bring you down, yeah.